Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished breaking down the Dallas Mavericks absolutely decimating the Minnesota Timberwolves in Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals in order to advance to the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics. We will be breaking down that series here in just 1 second for you. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, go ahead and leave that in the comments. I appreciate everything you guys do give. I will get to those questions as soon as I possibly can. And I appreciate you guys sticking around and talking some sports with me on a beautiful Friday afternoon. But like I was saying, we have our NBA Finals matchup set, and it's not going to start until June 6th. But we have the Dallas Mavericks making their first finals appearance since they beat the Heat back in, I believe that was 2012? Not sure about that. But they're first in quite a while, first in this era. The Celtics making their their second finals appearance in 3 years. So we have a different level of kind of experience in here. Now, you can look at it that way as a team, but while the Celtics have more team experience, the Mavericks have Kyrie Irving, who's won it with LeBron, been there a whole bunch. They might have more personal experience. And now that's not to say that no one on the Celtics has championships experience. You know, Drew Holiday won one just a couple years ago in Milwaukee. This is going to be a fun matchup. We're looking not just offensively at this matchup, but we are looking at defensively. These have been the two best defenses in the NBA in the back quarter of the season. The Mavericks number 2 and the Celtics number 1. We saw that kind of come to life. Then I know the Celtics, we talked about it, they haven't had the toughest path, and I feel like we haven't really seen them go all out yet, but they haven't needed to go all out because they've been great, and they are a little banged up. They do have Kristaps Porzingis still injured. He hasn't come back yet. I'd be shocked if he wasn't ready by June 6th, because all reports were there was a good chance he could play in the conference finals if they needed him to. They ended up sweeping that, and it ended up not being that big of a deal. But adding Kristaps Porzingis back down low, going up against Lively and and the Mavericks guys down low in Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. You know, the way they were able to terrorize Rudy Gobert down low. Kristaps Porzingis is a little more athletic, a little more agile, might be able to deal with that a little better. Now, the reason the Celtics defense has been so big is because of their perimeter defense, and I thought we might see some of that kind of pop up in the Timberwolves series when we were talking about the Mavs playing against Jaden McDaniels, but that just didn't really seem to bother Luka or Kyrie. They both had insane series. You know, Kyrie got called out. Really, the entirety of the Dallas team got called out. There was a shirt that Anthony Edwards wore in Game 6 against the Nuggets saying, "Hey, we want Dallas," and they ended up getting Dallas, and this is what happened. So, taking a look at this series, the season series, the Celtics won. It was very high scoring. Both of these teams, like we've seen the Celtics be able to go up against the high flying offense of the Pacers, play defense and shut down, especially in the big moments. If you remember back to that sweep, they weren't winning those games convincingly. The Pacers offense was doing their job. It was the clutch defense down the stretch, and some of it was Pacer mistakes, but a lot of it was Celtics getting a steal down the stretch in the last two games. In Game 3 and 4, they had steals that kind of put the game away. But taking a look at this series between the Mavs and the Celtics, you have a battle of duos. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown versus uh, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And we talked about Kyrie's experience, and I think that's kind of invaluable here. It's not to say that the Celtics don't have plenty of playoff experience going to like 5 straight Eastern Conference finals. Uh, they have plenty of playoff experience, but they don't have as much finals experience. That team defense from the Boston Celtics is going to be tough, but the Mavericks are coming off of a series where they just played against the best defense in the league, and it didn't really seem to bother them all that much. So, all in all, I'm not too worried. Really, what this comes down to, and I think this is going to be a really competitive series, I think the Celtics might start a little slow, just because, like the Nuggets, they in the beginning of the Timberwolves series, they hadn't really had to go all out yet. And I still feel like the Celtics haven't gotten to that higher gear, and they've been phenomenal these playoffs. They just felt like they haven't needed to go to that higher gear. I think the Mavericks might start a little hot, because they are the hottest team in basketball right now. Even coming into the playoffs, they were one of the hottest teams in basketball. Luka and Kyrie, I believe, can take the first game or two. Uh, the first game, I know it is in Boston, but they just showed in Minnesota they're able to the road factor doesn't matter too much to them, especially in a great crowd, a great arena crowd like Minnesota. Now, Boston is a completely different animal. Everybody knows that. Boston is a completely different animal, especially in the postseason. But I think they have the chops to go ahead and take. They can probably take game one. I think this goes 6 or 7. I'm taking the Mavericks simply because they have the best play. They have the best player left in the playoffs. And if we're gonna break this down position by position, I think this series goes 7 pretty easy. And playing a game 7 in Boston is not going to be fun for the Mavericks. But I think the Mavericks are going to be able to pull this out. Luka is just playing on a different level than everybody else in this postseason so far. Nothing. No, and this isn't any slander on the Celtics, because the Celtics, I believe, as a team, have the best built team. Team defense, team offense. There was a reason they were ranked number one in the league. There's a reason they were head and shoulders above everybody else in the East. And there's a reason that if they didn't make it this far, it would be considered a disappointing season. This was the bare minimum season for the Celtics, and that is kind of crazy to say with the way that it played out. They were just so much better than everybody else in the East. The Mavericks had to go through a bit of a slugfest. Even in that last series where they kind of made it look a little easy, it definitely was not easy. They had to scratch and claw their way, hit a couple buzzer beaters, hold off some late game attacks from the Timberwolves to win that series in 5. So they've been a little more battle tested, but they've been able to come out on top in every series. They haven't taken any of them to 7. Their series have gone 6-6-5. So they've played just one more game, or just I guess 2 more games, 3 more games, whatever, just a couple more games than the Boston Celtics so far this playoffs. But we will have to see exactly how that goes. Eric says he definitely agrees. He has the Mavericks in 6 because they went through the Pacers. All 4 games were close, and Halliburton play in 2 swept. Yeah, uh, and and Kelsey says Celtics in 6. We got a couple different opinions there in chat. It's definitely gonna be a tight series, and I could definitely see this going either way. The fact that it isn't starting till June 6th, I think, is a benefit for both teams, especially more for the Mavs, who, while the Celtics have to get healthier, right? The Mavericks, they've played a lot of intense basketball recently. Getting your guys rested up, that those extra couple days of rest are going to be huge. And I know a week without basketball kind of sucks for the fans and maybe even for the marketing of the NBA. But you have your schedule set. You can't really change that. Concerts and whatever else arenas are being used for around the league. But it is definitely something to keep an eye on how rest is going to affect them, and then they were all going to get a bunch of rest. But overall, I am taking the Mavericks in 7 games. We heard from Eric and Kelsey, but if anybody else in the chat would like to share their opinion, I'd love to see that. In our next segment, we're going to focus more on the Timberwolves. We're going to talk about where their future is from here, what kind of future outlook they might have after making a deep run in the playoffs, really their first deep run in forever, their first playoff series win in 20 years. So stick around for that. We will be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.